that's how you want to be like introducing yourself or your partner to anybody, is like, he's an individual, I'm an individual, like we're both awesome on our own, and we came together because we want to create more magic in life. I always had to follow the rules. I was always straddling these two versions of myself and like these two different cultures.
You are standing in your own power, and we are here for it.
Thank you.
So let's say someone gets married in their mid-20s. They're not the same person they were when they got married when they were 12. Why are they the same person when they're 50, right? 30 years later, and are you consciously growing together? Talk to us about what you see in the trends of marriage and divorce and coupling. Seema, how are you doing today?
Awesome day today. We're recording another episode. How fun is that?
We are. And I think today's episode is going to be really fun because our guest, can help people live into their spicy queenness.
It's going to be
What does spicy queenness mean to you?
Spicy queen. Why do I keep thinking of like a chicken sandwich? I don't know why I keep thinking of that. But the color hot pink comes to mind.
I love it. Well, I hope we're not talking about chicken sandwiches today, because we are going to get down to business. We have Shilpa Cacho, which is like macho with a C, joining us. And Shilpa is a no BS love coach. Hey, Shilpa, welcome to the show.
Hello, guys. I'm so excited to be here. I love that you see hot pink because that is all my branding. And let's change that vision of what chicken sandwich to like literally a spicy queen.
A spicy queen.
I love it.
I love it. We've connected through the magic of Instagram, through other members of the community and other Happy and Human podcast listeners. And we're just so thrilled to have you on here. So you are a no BS love coach and a sacred disruptor. Tell people what that means.
Yeah. So I'm not what you typically would think of as a love coach, because I mean, I've seen a lot of that on the internet, and like people just do things, I don't know, in a superficial way, or like strategy. This is how you get the man, or this is like how you get the man.
How do you get the man? Tell us, how do you get the man? Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, it's coming. Okay. It's coming. It's a loaded question, buddy. But yeah, my work is a lot of depth. So sacred disruptor is like, I'm coming in, I'm calling you out on a lot of shit that you don't want to look at, and it goes way deeper than just what's wrong with me, what am I doing wrong. It's more so connecting you back to why you're here in the first place, meaning like, why are you here? Why did God choose you to be here? What is your purpose here? And that is being the truest, boldest version of yourself.
I love that. I love that. So you didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be the spicy queen. You didn't come up here and say, I want to be a sacred disruptor. Tell us how you got here.
Yeah, so I had my own journey. I mean, I grew up first generation American. My parents grew up really poor. I always had to follow the rules. I was always straddling these two versions of myself and like these two different cultures. And I grew up like always navigating, who do I have to be in order to be liked by everyone else? And I grew up feeling very depressed, always anxious, crying myself to sleep often, attempting suicide at 16, ended up in a relationship that wasn't aligned with who I am and what I wanted to create for my life. And so my depression went, into my early 30s until I started to I had this big wake-up call, and my divorce was the catalyst for that, to look within myself and be like, how are you playing a role in the misery that you're creating for yourself and in the unhappiness that you're finding yourself in, and what's going on a deeper level? And it just really made me go within, and realizing I had a lot of healing to do. And that came with unlearning a lot of things that I learned growing up, which was you have to do what makes my parents happy or makes other people who are watching me approve of me. Like, reputation's everything. And then I have to be just so aware and hyper vigilant of what everyone else thinks of me, which made me very deeply disconnected from my highest self, which is very much connected to God and greater purpose. And yeah, so it's this whole big journey that brought me here. And honestly, actually, it started what I realized, and I have more to do on this earth. I always knew that, but I just didn't know exactly what that looked like. I gave birth, and 8 months after, like during postpartum, I went through another face down, rock bottom kind of moment where I was like, who am I? Why am I here? I'm not happy being at home with my mom, with my daughter, being a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, what's wrong with me and who am I? And then I had to go on this journey again. It was almost as if I went through a divorce again, but it was grieving my old self, and that I was meant for more. I was meant to grow and evolve. And yeah, so here I am. I was like, shit, this was the work I was always meant to do. And it aligns so well. And I know it's like, I was made for this. I'm so fucking good at it.
You are standing in your own power, and we are here for it.
Thank you.
You mentioned so many things that are traditionally taboo. Things like being depressed, even, growing up, the image that conjured up for me, and the one that I always share, is I felt like my feet were in two different buckets, and the buckets were on ice, and you're just sort of like skating to make sure you don't fall flat on your face. Right. So just an identity crisis, the mental health aspect, divorce, and then again with the postpartum mental health as well. So I love that you are so wholly transparent about your journey, and that it wasn't just like a light switch where you just wake up one day and everything's perfect and you're wearing bright pink and spicy.
Yeah. And even on my journey, like after figuring out I wanted to be a love coach, it took me a while. Even being an entrepreneur, I'm not sure what you guys do for work, but even this alone, like the podcast alone, is a form of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
It's a freaking like soul wrecking. Like you have to go on your own soul journey in order to be in entrepreneurship and be successful at it. So even with that also, I was evolving as my business was growing, and I'm like, oh shit, like my whole life purpose is to help people become their spicy queens, and in order to get what they want in life. So yeah, it took me a while to actually get the understanding of that, but here I am.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first part, which is the divorce, right? And as we'll walk through there. There, like anything else, there's countervailing opinions, right? And when our parents were growing up, like the one way was to get married, right? Have an arranged marriage or get married. And a lot of us, I don't know how old everyone is, but I'm in my mid 40s, and we have that downloaded operating system of like, that's the way to go, right? Like you will be happy, you will have fulfilled your purpose if you get married, you have kids and all that stuff, right? But now lately there's a countervailing point where the utility of marriage as a construct, as a societal construct, might have outlived its usefulness, or that marriage is a luxury item, right? Like what people are looking for is stability, and that comes by way of marriage and things like that. And I don't have an opinion on this that I've formed yet, but what do you see, and where do you feel people of our generation should be aiming, right? You're a love coach. So at some level, I think you still believe that we should aim for love. But I have a feeling that maybe for some people, relationships and coupling might not be the goal for everyone. In fact, like Vishen Lakhiani through Mind Valley, they didn't go through a divorce. They went through a conscious uncoupling, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're also changing so much, so rapidly. So let's say someone gets married in their mid 20s. They're not the same person they were when they got married when they were 12. Why are they the same person when they're 50, right? 30 years later, and are you consciously growing together? Talk to us about what you see in the trends of marriage and divorce and coupling.
Yeah, so I love this question so much because I also have my own opinion on it.
We want it. We want your opinion.
Yeah. So of course, there's a lot of things happening where, we grew up in the generation watching our parents go through arranged marriages, also staying on really unhappy, unhealthy relationships and still are married and still secretly like don't like each other.
Or not so secretly.
or not so secretly, people know about it, but it is what it is, right? And they were honestly, I think, better at hiding a lot more things or just normalizing things. Whereas now here we are in America where, okay, things like divorce are happening or people are cheating. A lot of people are cheating and have normalized that in relationships too. And like, I didn't normalize, I knew it was wrong, but I was still doing it. And I know a whole lot of people who are doing it in their marriages. And it breaks my heart because that comes from also a place of insecurity, inauthenticity. And I actually, it's not something I believe in, right? Even though it was something I've done in the past, I want people to start moving away from that. But my opinion on marriage, there is this big thing or movement or whatever you would call it saying like, you don't need marriage, you don't need a man, you don't need kids, you don't need this. But honestly, it works for a reason. Like if you're doing it in the way that I'm trying to teach it, is that having a conscious relationship which expands you will 100x your fucking life. Like will blow any idea of what you thought you can create on your own and take it to a level that you could have never imagined because you're co-creating it with someone else who is just as passionate and about not necessarily exactly what you're trying to create, but like the vision that you want to bring to life, and they will support the shit out of you, and you'll do the same for them, right? And that's what the beauty of it is, that people are running from because, or they're struggling with, is because they're struggling to sit with themselves and even get to know themselves first. And okay, I understand the idea of like, okay, when you're 20, you're a different person. I actually, then you're going to be at 50. Sure, 100%. You better be evolving. You better, as a human being, be evolving. Otherwise, what is the point of you living? Honestly, I don't believe in mediocrity. To me, like, no, I'd rather die. Kill me if like that is, I'm staying stagnant for years. I'm not changing. But the thing is that people are easy to use that as a cop out too, of doing the greater work of going into your depth of intimacy or like depth of yourself and saying, okay, what am I expecting of my partner? Or like, I'm expecting him to grow a certain way or do this or do that. But how can we actually still be able to create that connection or maintain it or nurture it while people might be on different stages of their lives? So that's where I'm at. I actually do believe marriage is forever, even though I went through a divorce myself, but that's because I didn't understand the concepts that I do now. And the greater challenge and the greater, like, what takes more work and has greater payoff is that if you can maintain that connection and and love and depth of love and intimacy with yourself and with your partner for a longer period of time, despite where the hell they are at life, you know what I mean? Like, how can you be able to create that and love unconditionally, but while still maintaining standards for yourself and for the relationship?
Yeah. I what's coming to mind for me is we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you touched on here is evolving and growing and allowing yourself to be friends with yourself and understand yourself so that you can actually receive a healthy, fueling energy from somebody else in a very intimate way.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much are you expecting of your partner or trying to take from them that you're not giving to yourself? Right. So,
Dinesh, I've heard you say this on the podcast too before, where we talk about, we refer to our partners as the better half instead of our, the other half. And I was in a room this weekend actually where there was a lot of that happening. The self depreciating in an effort to, tell people that they convey and love and respect their spouses. It was really interesting to watch that dynamic unfold, even though each one of these individuals is completely dynamic, completely powerful, and, and all of these things. So how are you seeing this sort of play out, this dynamic play out in the South Asian diaspora?
So when it comes to people introducing the other person as like the better half or the other half, honestly, even as you were saying half, I was like, no, bitch, I am the fucking whole, and my husband is his whole, and we're coming together and we're fucking badasses together, creating this like magic empire. And that's the thing is that, yeah, like you said, you're this is also what's happening in dating. You're putting yourself down here and trying to attract someone that you're like, oh, who's better than me, or who can love me, or who can I be chosen by? And this is where, when you're down here, this is also a lot of what's happening with men and women, where they're also feeling disconnected from themselves and from each other, and not being able to process their own trauma, or like their feelings around not feeling good enough, and thinking their partner's up here. And then that creates like this competition also sometimes that can come up. And yeah, no, I want to be able to look at my partner and be like, I'm amazing and badass, and so is he. Like, you guys need to know who we are. And that's how you want to be like introducing yourself or your partner to anybody, is like, he's an individual, I'm an individual, like we're both awesome on our own, and we came together because we want to create more magic in life.
Yeah. I love it. I have like a 3-part question, so I'm gonna try to make it make sense. There are lots of people that are gonna listen to this, right? And I think it's a generalization, but I think our audience will be on a spectrum of whatever we would call like a consciously co-created marriage to simply just existing or surviving even, right? And what I'd like you to share is, if someone's listening to this and they're trying to figure out like, where am I on the spectrum? Because like money and like so many things, we don't talk about our relationships with other people, so we can know relatively like, are we doing good? Are we not doing good? Share with us what you think are some of the signs of what make up like a really good co-created marriage, or some of the symptoms of a marriage that might be moving, or a relationship that might be moving forward on fumes. And then the last part is, talk to us about the role of respect, and the respecting someone's opinion and valuing their contributions, as opposed to what I've sometimes seen is one spouse or the other will just not have faith that the other spouse can do it as well, right? And I'll be completely vulnerable. My wife has no faith that I can do the laundry. And that is by design. The one time she asked me to do laundry, I specifically put bleach with all the colors and everything, and I ruined it so that I would never get asked again.
Oh my God.
That's okay. Yeah. So that is by design. But like, what I'm talking about. Like in some cases where the wife would be like, well, I don't really trust my husband to handle the finances. Or the husband will be like, no, I'm going to take the car in. Like, no, we've tried this before. You're not going to do it. So talk to us about those stereotypical like dissonances of respect.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So let's start there, because respect is a huge part of a healthy relationship. So I love that question. And the trust factor, oh my God, this is so huge, because where this stems from is when, if we didn't, which a lot of us didn't grow up with parents who knew, like, who were emotionally intelligent or did their own healing work or knew how to do any of that. So what ended up happening was we were often shut down from our emotions and feelings, and like not being able to express it, and not being able to trust anyone else to take care of us. We learned really early on that we had to take care of ourselves. So there's this culture of being hyper independent, especially amongst women. So when you get into a relationship, there is a huge lack of trust with men or with anyone else. And then because of that lack of trust, you struggle to actually receive what you say you want from someone. So I have all my clients, I want to be able to be taken care of by a man. I want him to take lead. I want him to do this. I want him to do that. The moment that any man comes into their world and tries to do that, they're like, no, bro, you don't do it as well as I do. You can't take care of me like I do. So they will actually unintentionally block it. And so that will look like even pulling away or finding things wrong with a man, or nitpicking or nagging or whatever it is. like my mother this last week. It's so funny because this is such a great example of this whole situation. My mom was sick, like she had COVID or something, and my dad, I was like, "Oh, are you allowing my dad to take care of you?" And she's like, "Oh no, he just makes my job harder. Like she won't even let him do the dishes because of that's her mentality and belief." But guess
Yeah.
what she complains about all the time? That she's always having to do the work and cleaning, all of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
her whole life, that's her complaint, but she's also created that situation.
Yeah.
So this is what we're doing in marriages and relationships. We say we want one thing, and then we won't actually allow the man to stand up and give that to us. So why
Yeah.
the hell, if a man is constantly defending himself against you, why is he going to want to go and defend you against anyone else? He's expending his energy defending himself against you, the person that's supposed to love him.
Hmm.
So I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah.
Bring the spicy queen.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So, we create, this is what I mean. One of the pillars of my work is taking ownership and accountability and responsibility, owning your shit. How
Yeah.
are you playing a role in creating the misery that you are that you're complaining about is happening in your life, but you're a key player in it.
Hmm.
So respect is a huge deal. So respect. Do not fucking go talk shit about your man, your spouse, your partner, to anybody else, to a friend, to family. No. If you want to go talk about it and you can't figure out the problem between the two of you, go to a therapist, go to someone else who can actually help you, who's not going to hold it against your partner, who's not going to hold it against you for reacting or responding a certain way. So huge rule of mine that I made this mistake in the past in my first marriage. So I didn't realize that this is a form of disrespect. My ex actually voiced that to me, but at that point I was like, I don't care, right? But now I see it as a huge form of disrespect when you can't bring that conversation to the partner that you're supposed to trust most in the world, and that you're not brave enough to actually also do that. But of course, there are times when you're struggling to find a solution or to maybe understand each other, and that's okay. My current husband and I have been to a therapist because there was a point in our marriage where like we couldn't figure it out. And then we had to have a third party come in and be like, well, this is where you're going wrong. This is where you're going wrong. How do you meet in the middle? And it's like, oh shit. Okay.
Well, I love that you said that because I think oftentimes, when you brand yourself as something like, a love coach, right? Or, where my father-in-law jokingly said the other day when I got a little irritated, he goes, "Uh-oh, the happy human isn't happy," and
Ooh, that's dirty. That digs deep.
My ego took a hit for sure, and then I had to be with my breath for a little bit. But what I loved about it was that even though you have the tools, you have the perspective, you have the experience, we are in our own pictures, and it's completely human and normal and encouraged to go outside of that relationship in a healthy way, to scaffold it sometimes.
Oh, 100%. And that's the thing. Whenever I also want everyone to know, I love my marriage and my man to death. It is literally like the foundation of, besides my love for myself, comes my marriage, comes my man. Okay. But it took us a lot of work to get here, and it continues to take work, but maybe not in the same way that it did at one point. But we'll always go through these evolutions of growth and change where we're like, is it working? Are we no longer working? And then we're like, oh no, we just have to change things in how we're connecting to each other. So it takes work and effort. So no, nothing is fucking perfect. Take that damn word and throw it out the damn window. Okay. We are human. We're here living a human lived experience. And that's messy sometimes. And that is okay. And we need to allow space for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about that thing about not talking shit about one another? Is that only for marriages, or does it work for podcast hosts too?
Yeah.
Because Seema, can you repeat that for Seema? She wasn't paying attention.
Yes, texting Anjana behind your back, Dinesh.
Yeah. No, I love everything you say. I think a lot of times we look externally for what the issue is when really we're not aware of how we're showing up or what we're creating. So I think all that's right. But what about if you can give some hallmarks or some guideposts or signs so that people who are on the right path or not on the right path can mentally in their head kind of, a little check-in, like, hey, do I need
Yeah.
to pay a little more attention because this is not how it could be,
Yeah.
but it is, and if not, how can we make it a little better?
Yeah, keeping scorecards is one. You don't want to be bringing up things over and over again and never actually forgiving the person. Maybe you're not forgiving the person because you guys actually aren't having depth of conversation.
Yeah.
But there'll be some things that you're also holding on to. So yeah, like keeping a scorecard just means like bringing up things from the past and
Mhm.
just keep punishing your partner for it.
Mhm.
Um, how can you process things as they're happening, or maybe even what I recommend to a lot of my clients who are in my spicy wives society, they're in relationships, uh, having relationship check-ins on a regular basis. So being able to connect with your partner, like, hey, what do you really how did I make you feel loved this week,
Mhm.
or what didn't I do the best that I could improve on, or how can I support
Hmm.
you better, things like that, asking those kind of questions on a regular basis. And
Hmm.
it's surprising how often couples aren't doing that, because
Hmm.
then you're losing touch on a, like, you're losing touch over time, and then you wake up one day being like, why don't I like my partner, why do I feel so disconnected? So really being able to make intentional time together. So, and I don't mean watching TV, sitting next to each other, scrolling, not actually having conversation. So
Hmm.
like you want to make sure you're connecting physically, and actually like through word, through connection, like sharing things about your life, about your dreams. What are you working on? How are you repairing after conflict? Are you repairing after conflict? Or are you
Mhm.
constantly carrying that, like brushing it under the rug? Happens often. So you
Mhm.
never, that's why the scorecard is kept, and it just builds up over time.
Mhm.
um Having sex, oh my god, can I tell you how many couples aren't having sex out there? And I'm like, this is an important part of intimacy,
Mhm.
to further make you feel connected to your partner. And some women are like, well, it doesn't feel that great anyway, or we don't last that long, or this, or I can't express that I need this, or this. And the thing is, there's a lot of shame around sex too. We grew up with
Mhm.
that shame as well,
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
we
So
did.
yeah, so that's one of the topics I'm also bringing to the forefront, because I want women to know we're allowed to have orgasms, and we
Mhm.
can, right? Like, and that we can have those conversations and topics brought up in our marriages and our relationships, and we can do work together as a couple to be able to to change that, and to have immense amount of pleasure and connection with one another, and that you don't
Mhm.
have to try to fantasize about your next door neighbor or some random dude who's gonna all of a sudden give you like a, I don't know, orgasms or whatever, and then you have to run away from your relationship in order to get that. That you can actually have that in marriage. It's a matter of being able to connect with yourself, connect with your partner, um, outside of a physical relationship,
Mhm.
and then being able to connect with yourself to deepen that.
Absolutely. You mentioned something that really, caught my ear, which was, how are you fighting? You mentioned
Mhm.
on one of your social media posts that too many couples are throwing in the towel too early because they don't know how to fight.
Yeah.
So, can you say more about that so that people can understand, what they might be doing and what they can do to
Yeah.
nurture their relationship a little bit more?
Yeah. Conflict is a big thing that a lot of people are afraid of.
Mhm.
And this goes back once again through our childhood. Like, hey, whenever I voiced my opinion, nothing was heard. But the thing is, they bring that into their other relationship, maybe even before they got married, and they think, I just can't say anything. I don't want to piss him off, or I don't want it to turn into a bigger argument. It's exhausting. It's not worth it. But it is worth it. It is needed. And conflict can actually bring you both closer together rather than further apart. And that's what purpose is for, right? It's not, like I said, relationships aren't perfect. They're messy and they're human. We're two humans coming together to figure this out. And, so fighting healthy is more so, can you take, okay, so oftentimes someone's triggered something, someone's upset, and it's bringing you back to an old story or a story that you have about your partner, about yourself. Usually, often it stems from rejection or fear of abandonment, something like that. And for you to be able to recognize that within your body that you are triggered and something's coming up for you. And then for you from that place to be like, okay, maybe first of all, I'm not in the right place to have this conversation. Maybe I need to step away, go for a walk, take a couple of deep breaths, whatever it is, and then be like, okay, I'm regulated. I can come and have this conversation and then talk to you from a place of vulnerability. Another thing that blows my mind of how scared we are to show up vulnerable with our partners, meaning, hey, I'm really afraid of losing you. And when you did this thing, it scared the living shit out of me that, like, you don't love me anymore. You're going to walk away. I know it's maybe an unrealistic thought or feeling, but I felt that. And that's why I reacted this way, or I got angry, or I got upset. But I really do love you. And I want to be able to make this work. So I would love to see more of this from you. Or what do you need to see from me? How can we meet each other halfway? The thing is, people, lose sight of this word sacrifice. They think they need to sacrifice parts of themselves or their dreams or their lives or who they are in order to be with this person. No, compromise is meeting each other halfway, and being able to create a happy middle ground for the both of you that's serving both parties, right? It's not
Yeah.
sacrificing who you are in order to be with this person.
Yeah. So good. Everything you just said about conflict and things like that reminded me of an article by a guy named Matthew Frey. And I don't know if you heard this article, but the title is "She Divorced Me Because I Left Dishes by the Sink." So in this article, right, he talks about the wife leaving him because he left dishes by the sink. And I think if you sat in on a lot of couples and they're talking about their disagreements, it's all about, well, what's the big deal? Why are you harping on me on this being a big deal? And he goes through this article where he talks about this lesson that he learned really late. It wasn't a big deal for him to leave the glass by the sink because he might use it again, didn't want to take out another glass. It wasn't really dirty, but it was a big deal to her. And every time he left the glass by the sink, it was such a big deal to her that she was leaving him one step at a time, every time. And she didn't want to mother him and all that stuff. And I think, whether you agree with that or not, I think there's one nugget that really I took away from that is what's a big deal to you may not be a big deal to your partner. And minimizing it by saying, what's the big deal? I left the glass there, completely misses the point that it might actually be a big deal to that person. And part of making things work is really understanding what's not a big deal to you, but is a big deal to them, and vice versa, right?
Oh,
Have you
yes.
heard that? Have you seen that come up where a husband or a wife is saying, what's the big deal? So I went out, or what's the big deal? I got drunk, or what's the big deal? I bought a new purse, or what's the big
Yeah.
deal? My in-laws stayed over, things like that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my husband and I have had these arguments ourselves, and we've had to come to an understanding of like, okay, like we're in this relationship with someone else and not, you know, living by maybe our own rules anymore. We're creating rules together, or ideas of how we want this life and household to function. And it's constant communication. And the thing is, you might have things established when you first get together, maybe a year down the road, and then you're watching yourself evolve and change, and maybe new things are annoying you, and you're like, oh, I think I need to have a new conversation about this rule or how things might need to change. And you're right. It's because in that situation, that woman felt unheard. Like, he didn't give a shit about what she cared about, right?
Yeah.
But if he was willing to have a conversation, or they're both willing to have a conversation, like, how could they meet in the middle for that compromise of, like, I don't know, whatever the glass situation is, right? But that's just an example of, I'm sure, how the rest of their life and their marriage was. But yeah, it's a matter of just your partner taking interest and caring about what your partner feels and thinks and has interest in, right?
Yeah.
And that goes with anything, not just household chores or whatever, but taking an interest in their life and who they are, making them feel seen and heard and understood, and that person doing the same for you.
Yeah, I mean, even hearing about this guy with the dishes and things, it's interesting also for me to think, what if nobody was made wrong? in that situation, right? Like, what if we just assumed or went off of the working belief that both parties had good intentions, or no, at least no bad intentions for the other person, a glass by the sink, like maybe it was a sign of love to say, I don't want to have to do a bunch of dishes and I don't want you to have to do a bunch of dishes. What are we making this mean together? And I think that, it sounds like what you come up against a lot is what meanings that these partners are assigning to the things their spouses or whatever are doing, but then to just assuming from the jump that their partner doesn't support them, that their partner doesn't see them for who they want to be seen as, or insert any number of potential realities there.
Oh, and I love this. Yeah, what you just said, because this is another problem, is that people are making assumptions and thinking the worst of their partner, rather than coming from a place of curiosity and wanting to understand why they do what they do, or why they might not be doing something that you're wanting them to do. And that's the thing, like you had said in that article, she said something about she didn't want to be his mother anymore. But yeah, it's really understanding this other person, and also not expecting men to function as the ideal woman. So as women, we will be like, I want my man to do this and clean and do this, whatever it is, the way that an ideal woman would do. Like, I want him to do things the way I do them. Why can't he see how I do things? Why can't he do it like I do, or whatever? That's a problem. That's a problem too, is we're expecting men to do things in the way that we would want them done, or the way that we function, or function in the way that we function. So that's another thing too, is creating stories around, he doesn't care about me, that's why he's doing that. Yeah. Where the man is like not thinking anything like that. Like, that's not on his mind at all.
What are you seeing in South Asians, right? Typical couple, been married 5 to 15 years, has a couple of kids, dual professionals, right? What are you seeing, and what is healthy, and what is really happening that we're thinking is, and that we're normalized, but is actually not good for us?
The biggest thing I'm seeing is people not having sex
with each other.
Yeah, with each other.
Okay.
Yeah, they might be having sex outside of their marriage, but they're not having it with each other.
Okay.
And prioritizing their kids over their marriage. And I know people have like different opinions on this, but the thing is, it's like, the kids are leaving you. Like, those kids are gone, right?
Yeah.
And if my marriage isn't strong, then, and it's going to fall apart when the kids leave. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, sex needs to be prioritized, people. You know what's crazy? People are even getting married.
Louder for people in the back.
Yes. Sex needs to be prioritized. And the thing is, people are even getting married and not having sex for months, for a year, and thinking like they know something's off, but they're like, I don't know. So people end up getting divorced a year or two later, realizing, oh, okay, this is a problem. No, yeah, fuck yeah, it's a problem. If you're not having sex in your marriage, it's a problem that you need to tackle and have what feels uncomfortable, but very much doable conversations around this topic. And to prioritize your pleasure and your partner's pleasure. It's not just all about him. And so I grew up, with a lot of shame around sex. And then I started to use sex as a form of validation, right? Like, oh, if I do it a certain way or look a certain way, then my man is going to think I'm so hot, or he's going to stick around, or whatever. And,
oh my God, me too.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Me too.
And then I married my husband, and all the tricks that I've used in the past, he's like, stop it. What are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? And it was I was so embarrassed and triggered. I was like, what do you mean everyone's like this before? And he's like, stop being fake. This is not you. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never been called out that way before. And that actually, after I was able to process through that, I was able to get a point of like, oh, he actually like wants me to be in my body and enjoy myself. And then we started to explore, like, I've never had an orgasm with like during sex before, never in my life, until I married this man, but until I prioritized it. So like we had dated, had sex and things like that, But I never prioritized my pleasure until he called me out like that and said, stop acting, stop pretending. I want you to really, really enjoy yourself. And then I started to do research and figure this out. And then, so we got to that point. I'm like, oh my God, more women need to experience this. And we all are deserving of orgasms and not thinking our vaginas are broken or something's wrong with us. And that we should be able to experience that with our partners, that it doesn't have to be a solo act, that we get to deepen our relationship and our enjoyment of marriage by doing it together and experiencing it together and being able to be more playful, but also prioritizing it. That, there was a point in our marriage, I think it was after I had my daughter, that we had to be like, we need to schedule sex. And some people are like, oh, that's so weird, or like, that's so boring, and you can't be spontaneous anymore. But we had to do that in order to maintain that connection, or at least make time for each other. And then once we started to do that, we got to a point of now like sex is spontaneous again. But we initially took a little bit of intention and effort, because it's easy to get lost when you have children. It's easy to get lost when life gets busy, when work gets busy. And sometimes we use those as excuses to run away from the harder work of reconnecting with ourselves and reconnecting with our partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I found is people don't understand when their bodies are talking to them or how their bodies are talking to them. And even not necessarily in the sense of the bedroom, but just when I'm feeling angry, when I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling stressed. Do you find that is a factor in terms of people are just not in their bodies in a non-sexual way?
Oh, yes.
Enough to then be able to communicate and understand, like, this is something that I want to open myself up to with my partner because there's value here.
100%. So that's why a lot of my work is also somatic work and working with your body for you to be able to be present. Because if you can't be in here, you can't enjoy the things that you're wanting to enjoy. You can't receive what you're wanting to receive because you're too up here. So then you're like thinking about your to-do list. You're thinking about all the other things you got to get done. You're thinking about how hard a conversation might be, rather than actually just going to do the thing. And then to be able to move through the feelings of, oh, I'm feeling anger in my body, and it's like a tightness in my belly or a tightness here in my chest. Now that means I need to talk through something. I need to share something. I need to process through something before I just rage on my husband or my partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When do you know if you're past the point of no return, right? Like, I'm thinking about all the things you're saying, and I can imagine someone saying, well, it's not even worth it. Like, I don't want to go to dinner with this person. I'm not interested in like being intimate with them. We just are so disparate, right? That we're not on the same page. But I'm not ready to leave. But I have to stay for the kids, or but it's convenient, or whatever. Like, oh my God, like going through like a divorce and a breakup and all that. That's hard work. It's just easy to like sleep in a different bedroom, right? Do life together because, like, I'm no spring chicken. I'm not going to find somebody else, and like this is just the path of least resistance. What do you say to someone who's kind of like, yeah, these are great. Like, you're young, you're vibrant, you believe in yourself, but I'm in my late 50s and this is kind of my lot in life. What do you say to that person?
Well, I'm vibrant because I choose to be. It's a choice, it's effort, and it's intentional. Like, I put work into it. So whoever chooses that life for themselves, you get to create that too. At any age, doesn't matter. So that's the thing, is those people are not meant to work with me. I would hate working with them, because I'm not going to pull anyone or try to pull anyone outside of victimhood, because that's where they're at. And they're thinking very small, and they're in survival state. So they can't see the opportunities and the goodness and the beauty that God wants to be able to create in their lives. So that's what I'm saying. I mean by, you need to take ownership. You're playing a big role in the misery you're creating. And if you don't want to put in the effort, you can keep living your miserable ass life. Just don't come my way, because I don't want that energy anywhere near me.
Yeah.
So
we're constantly living our choices, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Constantly.
Your life is a reflection of what's going on within you.
So good. How do we get more people to believe that?
By sharing things like this, by having conversations like this, open, honest conversations about how people have overcome divorce, depression, suicide, whatever it is that you've had to overcome in order to become vibrant and happy and still feel youthful and worthy of happiness, right? How do we overcome that? And for the right person at the right time hears that story and is like, I can have it too. What do I need to do in order to do that, or to get that, to have that? So to do the work that we're continuing to do, that you guys are doing. I love it.
Yeah. Do you work, I know you work primarily with women, but do you have instances where maybe the girlfriend or the wife says, I really want to work on this with you, with my partner in the room?
Yeah.
I mean, like what support are you finding yourself giving the men here?
Yeah, because I have a huge passion and soft spot for men, just as I do for my women, right? There's so much work to do, to be done with men as well, which is I wish my husband had we would have gotten where we are in our relationship now if he had more support for men as well. They just even for him, it takes a lot longer to access his emotions because they've even more so been shut down from their emotions, right? So right now we are actually, my husband and I are wanting to work with couples, so to also have that masculine energy in there, to be able to for a man to also feel comfortable. So yeah, that's actually where we're headed in the direction of, to be able to offer to couples. Yeah.
So good. And can you share with us, you can anonymize it, right? But share with us the story of someone that came to you and what their life looked like before, and what was the reason for them coming to work with you, and what did the after look like?
Yeah. Okay. So the first person that comes to mind, a woman who had gone through a divorce. She married someone, was in a sexless marriage, was also made to feel like something was wrong with her. She married this guy because she had pressure from her family to get married. It was kind of semi-arranged, but also they talked, but she didn't really have a lot of dating experience, and got into the marriage not really knowing a ton about marriage. And the thing is, I didn't either the first time around. I had to really screw up badly to figure it out. And that's why I also love doing the work that I'm doing, because not a lot of people are talking about what is required for you to have a healthy marriage. And so she came to me wanting to heal, and she did a course, like a group course that I had, like post divorce, and she did amazing work in that. And then she came to me to work one-on-one, to be like, I'm finally ready to date again. I'm really scared, but I'm ready. And we did we got her back out of the dating world and navigated some of that, and found this really wonderful man, who also is challenging her to grow and move through her fears of not repeating the past, and being able to trust and receive from a man who really wants to be able to offer love and care to her that she's never experienced before. So it can feel very scary, but being able to help guide her through that, it has been such a beautiful experience. And now she gets to have that experience and change her family's outlook on what marrying after marriage, or divorce, looks like, or if that's possible. And when you go through a divorce, there's a lot of stigma around it, or a lot of shame even within the family, and she's navigating that, or she's had to navigate that as well. So just kind of moving through that, coming back into her power. So
What an empowering story.
Yeah, that's such a great story. I mean, you're basically telling us that she had a new lease of life and happiness after working with you. Shilpa, you're a breath of fresh air. You're amazing.
You guys too.
We love everything that you've shared, and we've had some really deep conversations. But before we wrap up, at the Happy and Human podcast, we like to have a little bit of fun by way of a wrap up routine or ritual, and it's a little game where we can ask you a bunch of questions and have a little fun. So, you want to play our wrap up game with us?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, Seema and I will ping pong back and forth, and we'll move towards the end of our show here. So, you're a wealth of knowledge. You've gone through a lot of things, and thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably. I think it's very inspiring. But we live in a time where we want to listen, we want to read, we want to change our lives right now, we want to get a benefit right now. So teach us one thing that someone who's listening to this during their walk or while doing the dishes, that they can do right now and change their lives in undoubtedly confident way.
Hmm. First thing that's coming to mind is only say yes when you wholeheartedly mean yes, and say no when you really don't want to do that thing. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's start practicing honoring your truth in that small way, even though sometimes it doesn't feel so small. But if you don't want to go to that person's house or want to say no to that invite or whatever it is, like stick to your no's and honor your yeses.
So good.
So beautiful. Love that. And it's simple.
Yes.
And sometimes not easy, but such a valuable way to move forward and thrive. So thank you for sharing that. So as you know, we at the end of this show have this tradition of playing a game called Ask It Forward. So listeners, if you're new to the show, basically the last guest that we had on the Happy and Human podcast has left a question for the current guest. So Shilpa, you get to answer this question. And then you also get to leave a question for the next guest. And you won't know who it is, what they're going to be on the show talking about, but it's really, truly just a way for us to continue to talk about this conversation even after it's over. And so you actually are quite lucky. You get not one, but two questions today because we had two people on the show at the same time. We had Anish and Nikhil from Lokachai, the co-founders of Lokachai. And Anish has asked you, what is one significant moment in your life that you would like to relive and connect to again?
Okay, I'm like thinking about, it's so crazy because sometimes it can be hard for me to be fully present. But I remember when my husband and I eloped, I was like, I want to fucking remember this for the rest of my life. And I can still, like, even in my mind right now, think about us standing on the cliff, overlooking the water, and just saying our vows that we wrote for ourselves or for each other. And all we had was our photographer and our videographer and two of our best friends who married us. And it was the most beautiful moment. Yeah, so that's probably like one of the most memorable things I can say.
I love that. I just have this beautiful image of what that must have been like and how really sacred that was for you guys.
Yes.
So Nikhil then asked, when did you last connect with your inner child?
Oh God. Probably this morning.
Yay!
Often doing inner child work. Always talking to her. Yeah. On a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh,
Good
so
stuff.
good. So good. Okay. So your turn. What is your question for the next guest?
Okay. So mine's going to be a dirty one. It's going to be like, what is your favorite sex position?
I don't know who's on this show next. But
I know.
This is good.
Well, I can tell you, we also want our listeners to answer these questions.
Oh, I love it.
So
Love it.
we typically want you to meditate on it and reflect.
Meditate on this one for sure.
Yeah, because these are good questions to ask.
Yes.
Good questions. Vishen Lakhiani talks about this. Dr. Dispenza talks about this in his book. All these sports greats talk about the power of visualization. And so when you say, Dinesh, like meditating on this question, it's like, well, maybe we're visualizing and calling forth this new spicy queen era of
Yes, absolutely.
everyone having sex all the time within the confines of their marriages.
Is there outside of just being married to you, is there a spicy king out there, or is there a handbook of how to become a spicy king?
Oh, I know. You need to marry a spicy queen first because she inspires you to become spicy. Yeah, so maybe
no spicy.
Yeah.
No spicy royalty for the men unless they marry a spicy queen, right?
Exactly. Queens first. Yep.
I love it. Shilpa, this is great. We want to find a way to thank you, and the one way that we can think of thanking you is allowing you to share with us an organization or a cause that's near and dear to your heart, and so that we can make a contribution to that organization on behalf of you, highlight and raise awareness for that organization, and perhaps in some small way, someone who doesn't even know the podcast exists can benefit from the conversation we had today. What is a cause or organization that is near and dear to your heart?
Yes. I don't know if you guys have heard of Bloom India, but they're educating children out in India, donate, like they do put on events throughout the US to be able to collect money and bring it back there. So it's just beautiful. One of my friends is a part of that organization. And I thought that was the first one that came to mind.
Yeah. I love it.
Huge fans. Dinesh and I, both of our families are huge supporters of education.
Amazing.
In various ways. So we're always happy to support a cause like that. So thank you so much for sharing. You are doing, you mentioned little nuggets, little aspects of all the amazing work that you're doing, right? You're posting on Instagram, these incredible, helpful posts. You are, you've got these group coaching, groups, you've got one-on-one coaching. You're also leading a retreat that just in just a few weeks, you're about to jet off and host this amazing Spicy Queen retreat. Yeah. Tell us about that. And also tell us about how our audience can connect with you if they want to work with you, if they feel like your services can really help them build a more happy human life. Yeah. How can they connect?
Yeah, connection. Honestly, follow me on Instagram and send me a DM there. I do answer them. And I love connecting with people on there, especially if they have specific questions to kind of guide them into what program and what space is going to help them best. And when it comes to my retreat, I'm so freaking excited because I've been on a ton of retreats this year. This was kind of my year to give back to myself. And I definitely do retreats very differently, meaning we're not like in the forest somewhere solely doing breath work and things like that. We're going to do that, but we're going to do it in Paris and we're going to do it in Ibiza and we're going to do it while having a ton of fun at the same time. So I'm going to be leading workshops throughout to help women to, I'm just talking about the spicy queen energy for you to be your boldest self, to be your truest self, so you can attract men, money, dream life from that version of you. And for so it's all about stepping into that level of confidence and being able to remove those blocks and those limiting beliefs that have been keeping you stuck in the place that you're at that's not necessarily fulfilling you anymore. And you're like, I'm ready for more. I'm ready for this version of myself that I know it lives within me, that's deserving of so much more. So the retreat is going to be so amazing. We're going to do so many more fun things. It's also stepping into your feminine. So a lot of like what we talked about is like women struggling to receive that love, or maybe nitpicking and nagging and blocking themselves from the things that they're actually wanting to receive. And they're complaining about their men being too like not caring or whatever it is. That now you're bringing the energy and power back to yourself. And once you step into that, you inspire your man to become the spicy king. And so it's all about that. And it's so much fun. So yeah, I have a lot of fun activities planned along with the workshops. So you always leave my spaces transformed. There's no way, especially in in-person retreats. I have a couple of reviews from women who joined me last year, and their lives, they're not the same from a year ago, and their lives has drastically changed as well. So I'm just so excited. And for anyone who is interested, you can just DM me on Instagram, and I'm offering all your listens $100 off. So if that is something they're interested in, just make sure they tell me that they're from the podcast.
That sounds amazing. A retreat, you're right. So many of them that I see are like on the beach somewhere, in this forest somewhere. And I love that you're doing it right in the middle of busy, fun, vibrant cities, just like you. Yes, vibrant and fun. Yes. Very authentic.